Hello all and welcome to the official FanTeam podcast brought to you by FanTeam, the biggest daily fantasy site in Europe. My name is Andrew and today I'm joined once again by injury analyst and fantasy football expert Ben Dinnery. Good morning, Ben. What a week of football.
I think I'm still dreaming, Andrew. I'm not really sure the last sort of 48 hours has actually happened in real life. It's been a whirlwind. It's been a blur, been blown away. And then here we are, almost just press a reset and it's almost back to normal.
It is.
That's just another day in the life of, of FIFA, yeah. UEFA, the Premier League, football in general at the moment.
I've got to say, I've never seen such a collective gathering of football fans all be so aligned on one purpose, which was, absolutely incredible to see the scenes outside Stamford Bridge last night. They wouldn't let the coach in and stuff. You really hope that the fans, supporters, the media, in all fairness, the pundits, everyone have really put a position of strength forward to these people who try to do these things, and hopefully they'll be deterred from doing it again. You would hope.
Yeah, I mean that's the one positive. That's what you'll take from this. Particularly, what fans and supporters and everybody associated with the game have been put through, over the past sort of 12 to 13, 14 months. So this is a real sort of positive. And like you say, if it serves as a warning for any decision to be taken, down the line. And for those who maybe questioned that supporters, were, not an integral part of the game anymore. I think, this is an opportunity for those people, everybody in the game, to stand up, be counted, ensure that, we can come together, we can unite, and we can, afford change and push change, and we still have a voice in this game that is dominated by, some very powerful and rich people.
What a day for football and football fans. Absolutely amazing. Ben, is there any breaking sort of injury news we should be aware of? From my view, from like a fantasy view, I'm interested in Kane and Kevin De Bruyne. Is there any kind of breaking news on that front?
The Harry Kane injury is the one that's been assessed on a daily basis. What we do know is he hasn't trained yet. And, depending on the club and the status of the player, speaking to some medical teams, what they will say is, unless he can do a full, proper training session ahead of the game, you won't be considered. However, this is Harry Kane. I would suggest he won't feature, in the Premier League midweek. But, we've got the Carabao Cup final this weekend. And with it being a one-off game, then, I wouldn't completely rule Harry out, but it looks unlikely at this moment in time. With regards to Kevin De Bruyne, there were concerns, sort of rolled his ankle, and it's been classified as a foot and an ankle problem. And the concern is potentially when you do roll your ankle that you could actually maybe cause a slight hairline fracture in the bone. Oh. Now, he was initially sent for a scan. There was a lot of swelling in and around that joint, and everybody expects or assumes that imaging is the holy grail of everything. A player goes for a scan and you have a definitive diagnosis. That isn't the case. And particularly if there is a lot of fluid in and around that area. So the initial tests were inconclusive, but it looks as if there isn't any fracture there, which is obviously good news first and foremost. We know he's not going to feature against Aston Villa. And, there's an outside chance that he could even return maybe at the weekend. If not, again, maybe looking towards the Champions League. But sort of good news on that front with regards to those two players.
Superb, because they are absolute superstars for their teams, aren't they? So it's good to know we're going to see them again this season. Okay, so for our YouTube watchers, please remember to click the subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen and to press the like button if you enjoy our content. So our feature tournament for this podcast and video is the Gameweek 33 Weekly Monster, which has a prize pool this week of a massive £45,000 and will be running through the Gameweek's applicable fixtures and sharing our entry to the tournament with you. So our watchers and listeners are aware what the Weekly Monster is. It's very similar to the free hit chip in Fantasy Premier League, where you basically pick the best 11 players for the game week that you think will score the most points. So briefly running through the rules, you must build a squad of 11 players, and this must include at least 1 goalkeeper, 3 defenders, 2 midfielders and 1 forward. You can select up to a maximum of 3 players for any one Premier League team. You have a budget of 105 million to build your 11-man team, and you can make unlimited changes to your team until the first match kicks off, which this week is Friday, April the 23rd, 8 p.m. GMT. You pick a captain and a vice-captain. Your captain will score double points, and if your captain doesn't play, your vice-captain will get the double points instead. Player prices are priced in accordance with match odds, and safety net applies. If a player does not start, he'll be replaced automatically if possible by a cheaper player from the same club and position. So for those watching on YouTube, the point scorer matrix is on screen. As you can see, it's very similar to the season-long FanTeam game and indeed the Fantasy Premier League game. Ben, with all the chaos this week, we haven't even mentioned yet the sacking of Jose Mourinho, which would normally be kind of front page football stuff.
Has he been sacked?
Yeah. What do you think, the impact of that is going to be on Spurs the remainder of the season?
It's common knowledge really that Jose had lost the dressing room, barring 1 or 2 sort of key players. Harry Kane probably amongst those. And had it not have been Jose, he might have been pushed quite a while back. Players, if media reports are to be believed, then the players, just weren't happy on and off the pitch.
Yeah.
Morale in the dressing room was quite low. So you would suspect, with Jose gone, and you've got Ryan Mason coming in. He's got a long-standing affiliation with the club. I think he was. It goes back to the time when he came in. He was 8 years of age, and he worked his way up, and then unfortunately, obviously, retired following that horrific sort of clash of heads. I think it was with Gary Cahill, fractured skull, and he's went full circle now. He's back. So from that, respect, that's good for Tottenham. They seem to be in a little bit of a malaise, under Mourinho. Things weren't quite clicking on the pitch. So the dynamics of the group will change. There are players who are either on the fringes of the squad or just overlooked completely, who will see this as an opportunity to come in and, show that they're still able to play at the highest level. Put themselves in the shop window maybe, and go out there and give a couple of decent performances. So in that regard, like I say, there's players within that group who should be looking at this as a really good opportunity, and Tottenham could certainly benefit from that during the run-in.
Sure, yeah, I'm a Spurs fan, and I must say, and I'm probably a bit biased, but I think if you do look at Spurs kind of 11, first 11 or 15. I think they stand up to scrutiny man for man as one of the best teams in the league. They've got a really experienced keeper, a good defence. Højbjerg has been superb in that kind of the holding role. Sissoko has improved massively over the last few years, and Ndombele is he's finding his feet now. And then Son and Kane especially, and Bale, you've got 2 world-class players in that attack. So I think the raw materials or kind of ingredients are there to build a very strong team that can challenge, even for the league in the coming years, with a couple more signings. But the kind of Mourinho effect just kind of dampens the attacking dynamic of the team. They had some fantastic results at the start of the season. They beat Man City 2-0. They beat Man United 6-1 or whatever it was, and they played really high quality, intelligent counter-attacking football. But then they tried to play that same football against, no disrespect to, certain teams, but you play differently for how you play Man City to how you play Burnley and West Brom and Newcastle, say. Spurs still kept trying to play that counter-attacking sort of football against teams where it didn't suit. So, you just hope that Ryan Mason or, whoever comes in the summer, can learn from Mourinho in terms of how to win these really high-profile games against the best teams, but then also get back to that attacking, free-flowing football and really, get the best out of those attacking players. Because, as we say, Kane and Son in particular, and I personally think a lot of them, a lot of the other guys are very good as well. But just to be sat back playing on the break every single game is not what Spurs is all about. So we'll see.
And I mean, I'd be interested as a Spurs supporter knowing what your thoughts are on Harry Kane and links with a potential move away from Tottenham in the summer. If they don't reach the Champions League next season.
Well, I wonder.
Is that something you believe?
Well, I wonder. I'm a bit of a conspiracy theorist in these, sorts of things, but I wonder whether that's also behind the decision to get rid of Jose, because the way that Jose played just doesn't lend itself to Spurs ever really kind of challenging on all fronts, and maybe with him now out of the picture, if they can get a high-profile manager in the summer or in pre-season, it may persuade Kane to actually stay, and try and win things with Spurs, to try and break even more records at Spurs, Premier League records and things. But I must say, as a Spurs fan, I'd be absolutely devastated if Kane went. But on the other hand, he is in the absolute prime of his career at the moment. And if he was to go off to, a massive, massive club who could guarantee him,
Newcastle.
Who could guarantee deliveries coming in from Matt Ritchie, then no, I'm joking. Who can guarantee him playing with world-class players all around him, Champions League, the opportunity to score hat-tricks every game, basically, which is what he'd do, at a lot of teams, then I wouldn't blame him. It's very much the same as Bale back in 2013, was it? I didn't think he'd leave, but the lure is too much, and fair play to Bale. He went there, he won his Champions Leagues. Okay, it didn't work out at the end, but you can't blame these players for wanting to do these things. So it would be with an incredibly heavy heart, but with a full blessing in terms of thank you so much for everything you've done. We completely understand it. That's my view. Others, other Spurs fans may have different views, but we'll see. I'm sure I'm getting slated now by Spurs fans saying, "Oh, you can't do that," but cool. Okay, so there are 3 full round weekly Monster tournaments every game week. This week, one has a prize pool of £9,000 with a guaranteed first prize of £900, which you can enter for as little as £1.80. And for this week, there's also a free entry to this competition for new FanTeam users. So if you do fancy seeing what all the fuss is about, head to fanteam.com, register and play that tournament for free. There's a high roller tournament if you want to play for big money, but our feature tournament for this podcast is the €45,000 pound prize pool game with a guaranteed £4,500 first prize for just an £18 entry. The teams we pick can be used across all Monster tournaments. Just a reminder to enter all FanTeam contests. You must be over 18 and be gambleaware.org. So let's have a look at the fixtures then. So for this game week, we have 8 Premier League fixtures that are applicable for this contest. As Man City and Spurs, as we've already mentioned, play in the Carabao Cup final, their corresponding Premier League fixtures were moved some time ago. So the applicable fixtures are Arsenal versus Everton. This is 8 o'clock GMT on Friday. So make sure that you get your entries in before 8 o'clock on Friday. On Saturday then, Liverpool host Newcastle in the early lunchtime match. West Ham played Chelsea. Sheffield United played Brighton in the evening. On Sunday the 25th, Wolves play Burnley. Leeds then play Man United. Aston Villa play West Brom in the derby there at 7 o'clock. And on Monday evening, Leicester host Crystal Palace. Some really enticing fixtures there, Ben. What stands out for you when looking at the fixtures?
I fear for Newcastle heading to Anfield. I really do. It looks as if we're safe. Nice win there against West Ham at the weekend. So that eases a little bit of pressure on Steve Bruce back-to-back wins. That followed
amazing
up
results.
Victory down at Turf Moor. So, but that's one, if we can keep it respectable, a 2-0 or a 3-1, I'd be happy with that. I'm not going any rose-tinted glasses here. I think we'll very good chance we'll get beaten. We'll probably get stuffed. So, like I say, if we can come away with something that looks fairly decent in terms of a defeat, then that's okay. Elsewhere, interesting matchups with some of the clubs down the bottom and how things are maybe going to pan out. Sheffield United, I feared when Chris Wilder left and whether the whole club would just implode in his absence. But they showed, I know that they're now down, they will drop down to the second tier of football, but they're still going to have pride and they've still got a lot of passion to play for. And Heckingbottom will be planning now for the championship and hoping that this team can bounce straight back. Notice that, he's changed the formation, give it a slight tweak, last time out. And they looked okay. It's the same old problems that they've had. They can look pretty on the eye. They can dominate possession for periods, but they just can't put the ball in the back of the net. So that game against Brighton, which is a very interesting matchup there. It's a difficult one to call. Arsenal, again, they've got the distractions of the Europa League. We've seen, I think, Mikel Arteta made five changes for the game last time out, which included dropping Leno for Ryan. That's a fixture which is, I'm sort of drawn towards Everton with regards to that game. And the team who I'm going to specifically target during this run-in are Crystal Palace. And I'll be looking to oppose them, every week. And possibly, it's going to be an armband for whichever Leicester player that I manage to, get it on this weekend. But Palace inherently, Roy Hodgson, he's done his job. He's kept them up. Yeah. He's already said they're going to take the foot off the gas and, try to play with a little bit of, the pressure's off us now. And yeah, so, those are the sort of teams that I'm going to be looking at this weekend. The West Ham-Chelsea game is another big one as well. I mean, Chelsea, the new City, Tuchel, the new Pep. 5 changes again on Tuesday against Brighton. As much as I do like some of their assets, I kind of trust the fact that you don't know who's going to, play. And I know the safety net's there, but it's still a little bit off-putting if I'm playing, premium money out for a player. I want guarantees that he's got a good chance of starting, and you're just not getting that. So West Ham, even though you've got injury problems and huge concerns, I think they may bounce back, this weekend and with a good performance, and they'll see this as a good opportunity to get 3 points against one of their, Champions League rivals.
For sure, yeah. I haven't got much to add there, Ben. I do think it's one of the it's one of the weeks where there seems to be a lot of the favourites are playing at home. A lot of the bigger teams are playing at home against kind of a lot of the lesser teams, which makes it tough in terms of you can't have everything. You have to find a couple of bargains. So maybe they're the ones we're gonna have to pull out when we look at our team. So I've got your team on screen and now, Ben, for our YouTube watchers. Are you able to run through your team and your rationale?
Yeah, so I went with Patricio in goal, and I actually picked my goalkeeper and was one of my last picks this weekend because, as you alluded to, there's a lot of nice fixtures, and the issues that I had was just price points of players.
Definitely.
So while I would normally tend to go maybe to try to stick around that maybe £6-7 million mark, Patricio coming in at 9 is a little bit expensive. We've ran the numbers for this season running. There is an upturn in goals. Teams will score more during this period. Whether it's subconsciously we're safe, again, pressure's off, we can relax, or whether you still have teams fighting for Champions League qualification, leagues, or top flight survival. So we do see, and also you can factor in the fatigue issue on a long campaign. So I think clean sheets are going to be a premium, and while at the start of the season, we started with a goal glut. It died off a little bit, but I'm expecting that goal glut to come back. And there's maybe only 1 or 2 sort of games or teams even in any given game week where I potentially see a clean sheet. One of those is Wolves, and that's why I went with Patricio. Like I say, it wasn't if I didn't have the spare cash at the end, then I would have looked elsewhere and took a bit of a punt. But against a Burnley attack, they just don't instill any confidence in that they can go out and grab a goal. I know they did against Manchester United, and they had a goal disallowed. But, I'm still happy to take my chances with Wolves at home. They have a little bit of upturn in form, but Nuno's kept them fairly tight, in recent games. So, yeah, I like Patricio with that. And I've went with a 3-5-2. So the back three, there are teams that I would like to maybe double up on. But, again, given that I'm not sure of who's going to be getting a bit clean sheet, I don't want to take any hits with a stack. So I don't want to double up with any team defensively. And I've tried to maybe identify players who bring something offensively to the table, as well as maybe what they could earn defensively. And it's not a great back line by any stretch. Sheffield United is, so I alluded to that before, and they would be, take confidence, I think, from that defeat to Wolves. Played really well in periods. And look, it wouldn't surprise me, like I say, if they can grind out a 0-0 draw in that one, or maybe, edge it 1-0. I still think they've got maybe at least another victory or two during this running period for them. Small margins. Sheffield United haven't been as bad as the league table might suggest. I think a lot of those games that they've lost by the odd goal. And like I say, if they had a half decent striker, then I think they would have been safe this season without question.
Scoring goals has definitely been their issue. As you alluded to, a few of their kind of 1-0 losses, if they'd have been 1-0 or 2-1 the other way, as you say, they just can't score. They just can't score a goal, can they? But defensively, they've been okay, I think, haven't they?
Yeah, and it's just it just eases the pressure, and that confidence flows through the team if you've got something to build on, hold on to.
Yeah.
But when you're constantly against the backs against the wall, it's tough. I've tried to follow the form in West Brom. I know it's a tough game. I think in Black Country Derby against Aston Villa, it's a huge game. But West Brom in the last two, I think maybe Sam's just told them, well, we've got to go out there. We've got to win now. We need those 3 points. They stuffed Chelsea, and then they won 3-0 last time out again. So I followed a little bit of form with that. And Bartley's never far away set pieces.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So that's why we put him in. And my third defender is Dallas. Maybe a template-y punt in the grand scheme of things. It's a very, very tough game against United, and I can see there being goals in this game. And in Dallas, playing in midfield, in that advanced role, maybe on hopefully, 1 or 2 chances fall his way. So that's why I threw him in, and it's 6.6 million. I think he's worth a punt at that sort of price point because. United do concede, so there's going to be opportunities created, as there always is, with Leeds this season. Now, midfield, we're going to go with 5, and again, for the exact reasons that I outlined with Bartley, I went with Pereira. The form pick, and West Brom have something to play for. He's been absolutely superb.
What a player! What a player he is.
Yeah. Look, if West Brom go down, there will be teams in the top flight who are looking at 1 or 2 of these West Brom players. Pereira being one of those. He can deliver. He delivers at the highest level, and he's really sort of stood out, and he's been a shining light for West Brom. He's sort of carrying this Baggies team to, I'm not going to say on the brink of survival, but he's given everybody hope with his level of his performance. Yeah. Everton, we've went with James Rodriguez, and this is a tough game. This was a really tough pick. I'm thinking, purely from the fact that Arteta, he's got his eyes on the Europa Prize. There will be changes. mentioned it before, those 5 last time out.
Yeah.
I really don't know who Mikel Arteta will be in his starting 11, to be honest. We've seen Xhaka at left back and Elneny come in. Will we see Aubameyang back in that team? Lacazette's now had an injury. He keeps changing that back 4. And with DCL, hopefully coming back into that Everton lineup, few of the other injured players came in game week 32, so they should be a little bit fresher, a little bit sharper. And, if Rodriguez can finish the season as he started the season, then, we should hopefully be there to garner a few points from his performances. So I quite like him, although, again, tough fixture, and the caveat is we just don't know with Arteta and his team. Following the form with Jess Lingard, almost in the form that he's in, he just transcends fixtures. When you're feeling that good, it doesn't matter who the opposition is. I know it's a London derby, Chelsea, tough game, but again, Tuchel will rotate. I think the Blues have got Real Madrid maybe coming up in a few days after that, so there'll be one eye on that fixture. Hopefully, it looks as if Lingard's going to be absolutely fine. Forced off at Newcastle to James's Park with a touch of cramp, a little bit of a hamstring issue there. I watched the game at St James's Park, and this just, I suppose, is the reason behind the pick as well. I thought he was absolutely garbage for most of the game. He didn't, particularly first half, and then he pops up with a penalty, and then he was still, buzzing, and maybe could have got another one. So, like I say, when you're in that kind of form, then you just attract points. Maybe like Bruno did.
But I was just going to use the exact same, the comparison there. When you're in that confident form, as you say, the points just come to you in all different ways. You can just have a pot shot from 25 yards. It just happens to find its way in. You win a penalty. You win you score like a fluky goal or whatever. But they just seem to do it. When in that form, don't they? Agree?
Yeah, and it's 7.7 million. Obviously, the opposition's taken into consideration there.
Yeah.
But again, a good buy for me. The other 2 midfielders, Mason Greenwood. We've seen, we know that Anthony Martial is sidelined.
Yeah.
I was quite surprised to see Cavani on the bench last weekend, but I don't think it really makes that much of a difference anyway. I would hope. The only concern is he brings Pogba in, maybe alongside Bruno and Rashford, and Greenwood drops to the bench. But on form, and after another couple of goals, for me, he has to start.
Yeah. And
again, when you're catching that rich vein, there's always a potential for points return. And we would expect a high scoring encounter against Leeds United. And in Liverpool, it's a tough game for Newcastle. Despite the form that we've been in, I've been waiting for Klopp to deploy this attacking, the Fab Four.
Yeah.
The Firmino, the Mane, the Jota, and the Salah. In recent weeks, we've just seen the 3, and it's been a Mane out. We've seen Salah out last time. So he's champing at the bit to come back into that squad. If Nat Phillips is injured, I think it makes an easier decision for Klopp to say, right, well, Fabinho drops into that back 4. We'll have Milner and Gini Wijnaldum as the 2, and then we'll have that front 4, because we know Steve Bruce is going to line up with a 5-3-2, and or what's really is going to be mainly probably a 7-3 is what it'll be, with maybe Wilson, San Maximin, and Almiron floating. The rest, you're going to have your 5 defenders, and then you're going to have Shelvey sitting in front pinging, and Longstaff. So Newcastle, for the most part, won't really offer too much of an attacking threat. Liverpool should be able to counteract that, and whether he goes with a 3 or with a 4, Mo Salah's starting for me, and Mo is Mo.
He's just lethal, and he's just lethal, and he's on form. He's played much more centrally than he has been, in recent games. And I always say in fantasy as well that the penalty aspect is just always something you can't ignore. You don't have to play well to to score a penalty and bag the points to you. So yeah, I think he's going to be a very popular pick this weekend, isn't he?
Yeah. In the final two up front. I mean, this decision will probably make or break us when I triple baggy and I went with Diania up front. And he's a player who I've went with across a lot of formats for a long time. I think he's been very unfortunate in his goals return, marginal decisions, close calls, disallowed goals, hitting the woodwork. And by his own admission, he said he's finally starting to produce a level of performance that he knows he can deliver, and he's settling into the Premier League. And I'm just riding on that wave of confidence. So, look, it's a big one. If the Baggies blow out at Villa Park, then my chances of a cash return this week are down to Swanee. But look, I'll go with Big Sam and to make it 3 big wins in a row. And finally, Leicester. I'm not a particular big fan of this player. He's not somebody that would typically gravitate towards. It would always be Jamie Vardy. He would always be the first. But look, Kelechi he makes it hard to ignore. The Vardy's patchy form or poor form or in different performances make Iheanacho an easier pick. And Leicester have, like I say, I highlighted that Crystal Palace fixture, and so I want involvement, and he will probably have the armband because I would expect Leicester still have something to play for. They'll be full of confidence, having reached the FA Cup final. There are players playing for positions.
Yeah.
There were players, wanting to push in for Champions League qualification spot. They know they can't afford any more slip-ups. And the Crystal Palace fixture is one which is just, I think if you could have plucked any team from, to come into this game week, then that would be the one. Leicester will know exactly what they will need to do because they play last in this game week. So, Brendan Rodgers and his team will go into that game with their eyes fully open. And yeah, I expect, at least 3 or 4 from the Foxes in that one, if I'm honest.
Fantastic team there, Ben. I've got to say, obviously, defense is on the cheap side, and you put all your money into midfield and attack, but it looks very, very strong. I'll just pop my team up on screen now. So I've gone for a 5-4-1. We have got a lot of similar players actually in attack, but I've gone for Dubravka in goal. So as usual, every week I go for the cheap keeper, 5.1 million. I expect Liverpool, as you say, to score a few, but Dubravka's a good keeper. He's a good shot stopper. So even if they concede 2 or 3, if he can get 5 or 6 saves, you end up with a positive outcome there for Dubravka. And obviously at 5.1 million, he then enables the kind of rest of the team. Do you know what? I was tempted by Matt Ritchie this week. I know it sounds a bit of a funny one, but he was 4.6 million in midfield, and the way he swings the ball in, Liverpool, haven't been defensively very sound, and even if he does nothing, he's a massive enabler as well. But I did in the end because I've gone for a couple of Liverpool defenders, and I didn't want to be cheering on Ritchie when they were wiping out my clean sheets. But I've gone for quite an expensive defence. I've gone for a double up of Trent and Robertson. Trent's form is just out of this world. He just looks, my goodness, he looks like he's going to score a goal himself every time he goes forward. Never mind anything else. So at the moment, I've got my vice on him, but I might be actually tempted to captain him. I'll see. I'll see about that. And I've gone for Robertson as well. So I've gone for 2 very, very expensive defenders there at the back for Liverpool. I've also gone for 2 expensive Leicester defenders. So you've mentioned all the credentials of Leicester. Completely agree. I think they're superb. I've gone for the wing backs. So I've gone for Castagna and Pereira. I'm purposely going for all the most expensive players. So if the safety net would apply, then if it dropped down. But I've gone for those 4. I've gone all out for they're the left and right backs for the teams with the best fixtures this week. Any kind of attack in return, and they'll be really in their points. And I've backed them up. My 5th man is Dallas, so everything you said against Dallas, I think there'll be a couple of goals. Dallas always seems to get a chance or two every game as well. He's normally there or thereabouts. So he may get a clean sheet, which I doubt. I think there'll be goals, but from just a price and attacking viewpoint, I've put him in there as the fifth as well. Gone from midfield, and I think actually, I think all remaining 5 players actually, we've got the same. So I've got the armband on Salah at the moment. Everything we spoke about, no point going over again. He's clearly probably the best option this week, with the best fixture, and he's on form. I've gone for Greenwood. Everything you said, what a finisher he is. He's bound to get some chances. To score a few. He's quite expensive this week at 10.9, but the form he's in against Leeds, I think he's a very, very worthwhile punt. And the form picks, as you say, of Jesse Lingard and Pereira. So I go for these. I go for these most weeks at the moment, but the reason is because they're so reasonably priced. Lingard is 7.7. Pereira, who's on pens, let's not forget as well, is 7.6, and Pereira's performance, especially against Chelsea, was just absolutely out of this world. I completely agree with you, and I think next season, if he does move, I can see him move into a big team. One. I don't want to say the top 6 or the big 6 because I get a bit of a hammer in there, but a really big team. I think he's that he's that good a player. So that's my 5-4, and then I've also gone for Iheanacho up front. So very, very similar, in terms of our attackers there. Obviously I've managed to squeeze a bit more in defence while you've ploughed a bit more in midfield. But yeah, we seem to be thinking along similar lines there. I've gone triple Leicester, triple Liverpool, and then a couple of talisman from some of the other teams or the inform players. So that is my team, and I've got to say I'm quite excited. There's a few weeks where I think, it's been hard to pick a team, you're not sure, but looking at this team, I think actually, I've got that really nice mixture of attacking the top teams with the best fixtures, talisman from the others, and I even fancy the Vrabker and goals to get a couple of points as well, because Newcastle have been playing well actually. They've really turned the corner. Do you think Willock has any chance of staying on loan, or even a permanent signing? Or
I think it all depends on we know Steve Bruce is the players are playing for Steve Bruce, so there's still that was maybe a concern at some point, and particularly when we were hovering in and around that that the drop zone, and Fulham were breathing heavily down our necks. Players responded to that. Steve Bruce changed things up. He brought in Jacob Murphy, probably at the detriment to Willock, who then dropped out the team. So this upturn of recent performances has coincided with Willock being benched, but then he's come off and he's produced, and he's got the goal against. He got the winner against West Ham coming off the bench, and I think he scored in another game prior to that, coming off the bench. I don't know. He loves it here on Tyneside. He settled really well, settled really quickly. But of course, with a lot of these things, it comes down to money. Yeah. And, we're governed by Mike Ashley. So, that probably just ends the conversation here and now. But I think in terms of development and looking at, providing a platform for somebody like Joe Willock to go out and ply his trade and learn his craft. Newcastle's inherently, we've always had quite a good, strong reputation of being able to do that. Now, for whatever reason, is he going to get the same opportunities maybe that have been afforded to the likes of Saka and Emile Smith-Rowe at Arsenal? Maybe it suggests if he's going out on loan, he isn't. So I think, it depends in terms of any negotiation and any chance of getting the likes of Willock, it will come down to Mikel Arteta and what his plans are for the player. I'm sure he'll be watching his performances up here at Newcastle fairly closely. He'll be getting those reports. And if he feels he can deliver for Arsenal, because I think Willock's probably at the stage of his young career now where he needs to be involved a little bit more, and he needs to be playing. And the under-23s and the development side, it's all well and good, but really it's at that highest level, that you want to be good, especially when the crowds, come back towards the back end of the season, and hopefully, for next season. So we will see, but he's had a great start. He's settled really, really well, but it will come down to money with Ashley, and ultimately, the player admitted himself, he just doesn't know what the future holds at Arsenal. So he'll want assurances, and given with what he's doing on Tyneside as well, that would have alerted other clubs elsewhere, not just not only in the Premier League, but also abroad as well. And that seems to be quite a popular and a successful transition for young players to go and learn, experience a different culture and a different style of football. Jude Bellingham, Sancho, those players have really sort of grasped the way and flying. So, Willock may fancy some of that. So we'll wait and see.
Great insight, Ben, as usual. Thank you so much. Okay, so finally, if you haven't seen it already, we have some incredible news to share with you. FanTeam pushing the boundaries even further this summer with a £1 million Euro 2020 FanTeam fantasy competition with a completely life-changing 200 grand first prize. I must say, Ben, last day or two, there were concerns about, participation in the Euros and if players were going to be able to play and all this sort of thing. Thankfully now, that's all being put to bed, so we can fully focus on getting our teams ready for this. There are a couple of videos on this channel already to talk you through how the Euros competition works. You can sign up and start drafting your Game Week 1 team now. So what are you waiting for? Get on and start choosing your Euro 2020 full tournament team. You can obviously change players right up until the deadline for the first game, so don't worry about that. So that is it from us for this episode. All the links are below for all the games we have discussed today. Don't forget, for this week, there's also that free entry to the £9,000 tournament for new FanTeam users. So head to fanteam.com to register and play that tournament for free. Thank you so much, Ben, for joining me this week. We'll have you on again very, very soon. Wonderful insight.
Always a pleasure, Andrew. Really enjoyed it. Thanks a lot, man.
Cool. Remember that if you liked what you watched, please press the like button and remember to subscribe to the channel at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. If you're listening on a podcast, please rate the podcast version. Give us 5 stars. Go on and leave us a comment. Let us know how we did. So this podcast will be available as a video on the FanTeam YouTube channel and available as an audio version on all major podcast platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and SoundCloud. Just search for Official FanTeam Podcast. Our website is fanteam.com and our Twitter handles are at FanTeamOfficial and at FanTeam_UK. Give us a follow for regular game updates and for entry giveaways for lots of FanTeam competitions. There are giveaways every single week for the Monsters, for the Euros, for everything. So make sure you follow those handles on Twitter. We will be back very soon looking ahead to the Game Week 34 Weekly Monster. The very, very best of luck for your picks for Game Week 33. Goodbye for now.